You can't change the event, and you really can't change the reaction of what's happening, but if you could change the label, the meaning, and the emotion behind what happens, you have the ability to change almost anything in your life.
As a business owner, it is your primary job to influence others to see new perspectives and make new decisions when it comes to using and purchasing your products and services. This is done through sales and marketing. When done right, stimulates and activates certain emotions in others at a neurological level. We have all heard the strategy to find people with a problem and solve them. But how much time do you take using the same strategies to influence ourselves and your own emotions? Imagine how much more effective you would be if you felt more on and were less bothered by day-to-day stuff in your life. As an entrepreneur, there's one guarantee. Shit will show up, and if you let it, can get in your way and for certain slow you down. What if you had a simple process to use the same skills you use to market to others to rewire your brain? This next 10-minute talk is from Michael Burnoff, who will share a process he calls the ultimate reframe, 6 steps to make sure that the shit that happens to you doesn't bother you. Michael Burnoff is the founder of the Human Communications Institute, an organization that is dedicated to understanding and teaching the most cutting-edge communication and influence strategies. Michael has shared his strategies with countless business owners worldwide, and most importantly, has consulted and assisted many members of Genius Network in both Genius Network and Genius X, which is our 100K group, in all areas of life and business. So pay attention. You're about to learn his exact process he has used for over 15 years on countless successful interventions to help people heal and be less bothered by the day-to-day stuff that happens in life. If you only implement one of these steps in any area of your life, you will notice the difference quickly. So please help me welcome my friend and always amazing, Michael Burnoff.
Appreciate it, Joe.
Thank you, sir.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. And nobody tell Joel that I'm using slides today. I just want to tell you, it's a new feature for me that I'm adding. So I want to make this simple. I know I'm up against that thing called lunch here happening in a couple of minutes, so I'm going to ask for all of your attention. And that's one of the big things that I typically teach people is how to grab people's attention for long periods of time. So I need it for about 10, 11 minutes right now. And I want to make certain that all of you walk away with a very, very powerful idea. Now, I had Eunice that reached out to me and she said, hey, are you open to doing a talk? And my brain went into that whole mode, like I'm certain a lot of you do. We're like, how many of you do a lot of talks? Do a lot of you do talks? I had 100,000 talks in my head. And when she asked me, the guy with ADD at that moment, what do you want to talk about? I did the smartest thing in the world. I asked my wife, what should I talk about? And literally she said, let me think about it for a second. And she comes back, she goes, here's what entrepreneurs deal with. I know you always talk about influence, you always talk about sales, getting people to get their point across, stuff like that. Why not help people with the biggest thing that they deal with, the shit that shows up in our lives? And the majority of you're master marketers. You're really great at getting your point across, but how much time are you spending marketing to you to get yourself to be less bothered? Because isn't that what we do in business? Like literally, you got a person with a problem, you hit them over the head a little harder, you sell them a Tylenol, and then you get them on auto ship. How many of you know what I'm talking about? That's our job. That's what it is we're here to do. But the question is, when something shows up in our life, how much time and energy are you literally taking? I'm going to question you. Here's question number 2. That she gave you the ultimate question. I'm giving you question 2, and really ask yourself this very simplistic question is, how often are you spending time rewording and recalibrating things in your life that may be slowing you down and possibly bothering you? So I'm gonna give you 6 steps here that are very simple. I use this for high-level intervention work. Eunice has been to our event before, and she's seen me do this, where someone that's been raped or abused has a problem, 30 years of issues, and I get them to see it differently in 10 or 15 minutes to change their emotions. But there's little things that happen in our day that wind up being big challenges for ourselves. So I'm going to give you a little synopsis real quick. I want you to imagine you're 4 years old again. Okay, you're 4 years old, 3 years old, 2 years old. And don't be that person that 4 years old was a bad year for my life. Pick a year, it doesn't matter. You're a little kid. And you're walking down the street and there's a little hole in the ground and you step in it. And immediately your parent says to you or someone next to you goes, you tripped, are you okay? Now before that, nothing had occurred. Your foot went in a hole. Immediately, you were told that you tripped. Your brain says tripped. When I trip, people get worried. Something must go wrong. Now, when Tucker was talking about earlier about jamming stuff down in our body that lives there for a while, you're starting to develop a little something called a pattern. Tripping is bad, and I get people's attention. Well, you're about 8 years old, and you're with your buddies, and you trip, and you fall, and they laugh at you. Now tripping is bad. you fell, people laugh at you, it's the wrong thing to do. Then you're 15 years old, you're playing ice hockey, and the coach says, you need to do a drill you're not comfortable with. Or you're doing gymnastics, something you're uncomfortable with. Or you're in business at 35 years old and you're wondering why you're the person that won't do something that's outside of your comfort zone. And what the most stimulating thing for me to think about is all of us have the ability to do this with others, but how much time are you spending working on yourself? So my challenge is, I'll do my little 7 minutes left of this talk. I'm going to challenge all of you, even over the next month, spend 7 to 10 minutes thinking about the word choices that you use in your life. And Tony brought up something a little bit ago, and I started reframing immediately because my brain is always in reframe. Meaning when you said your challenge, like my partner died and I finally made as much money as I wanted to make in my life, and I'm more miserable than I've ever been in my life. I heard that and immediately started to reframe. So I'm going to use slides and I'll see how this works. Here's a big sign we have in our office, and it very simply says, your future hinges on your ability to effectively communicate.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this video, and I want to let you know that I have a new book that's come out, and if you'd like to get it absolutely free, there's a link below in the description, or you can wait till the end of this video, or you can simply go to joesfreebook.com and you can get a copy there.
Now, after reading the book about why, I thought about this for a second, and why we do what we do is that I truly believe that communication is the most underdeveloped and underutilized asset we have as human beings. Most people are miserable at communicating with other people and themselves, and when you communicate with yourself in a weak way, you typically get a weak life. So when I explain this to you all real quickly, I'm going to ask all of you to realize this. How many of you have had some shit happen to you in the last week that's not what you expected? How many of you, raise your hands. Okay, how many of you in the last year have had shit happen? Okay, how many of you recognize that immediately when that shit occurred, it happened and your brain was searching for, what do I actually call this thing? Because you've never actually had that moment before. So Doc, you're going to get this immediately. I'm taking like Sigmund Freud, forgive me. And I'm taking all of the work, I get that backwards sometimes. And maybe all of you will learn that if you actually put things backwards in people's brains, they'll learn to start seeing things differently. And you'll realize very quickly that one of the smartest things you can do is screw up during your presentation, say something backwards or use somebody's name backwards, and they start questioning everything else, and they start questioning themselves. So pay attention to this because it'll make sense. So the first thing that happens is an event occurs. Little boy trips in hole, or just little boy foot in hole. Go on date, somebody does something you didn't ask them to do. What happens is an event occurs. Immediately in our brain, anytime we have an event occur in our lives that we've not experienced before, the brain almost immediately starts looking for answers. Oh my God, what is this called? What does it look like? What does it do? And all that happened was an event. If you look, the 21st of whatever the hell month this is got circled. There was an event that occurred. Tony made more money than he ever made in his life. His brain said, what do we label that? It's supposed to be a great day. See, my question for Tony is, what Tony did was, he set a plan for himself that said, he set an event, that one day I'm going to make more money than I've ever made in my life. And what that's going to be called is the happiest day of my life. It's going to be called the reckoning. It's going to be called the breakthrough. It's going to be called everything I invested, every dollar in every event ever in his life. And he told himself a story. Am I correct? We do this all the time. We put a label on something, no different than I tripped. As soon as you get a label, the brain immediately gives it meaning. Now what you said is, Tony said, I'm unhappy. What does that mean when I'm unhappy? Wow, things in my life are not working out the way I want them to. Now what's fascinating is, let me give you another example here because I have 6 minutes. I'm going to walk a few people through this right now. Who here has had some challenge, something show up recently that's not like super complicated like a divorce with a narcissist? But has anybody had something happen recently that's a challenge that wants to jump in? Go quick. What's that? You got to go quick.
I want to jump in. I have a narcissist stepson.
Oh geez, the narcissist again. Okay, very good.
Who told us that he wasn't going to come for Christmas Eve dinner, but
So let's go back again. So what happened is, we had an event that happened. Somebody made a promise, correct?
correct.
Very good. And immediately somebody made a promise. So immediately you labeled it. And you labeled it and said, somebody didn't follow through, correct? And immediately after that is, what does that mean? That means that that person is a liar, that person lied to me, that person let me down, correct? Now, anytime you label something and you give it a meaning, which we all do immediately, all human beings do this in a matter of seconds. You can slow this shit down. I've learned how to slow this down. I'm out with my wife one day, and we ran into a jumping cholla. How many of you ever done that before? A jumping choya. Let me explain real quickly. If your wife's screaming and she goes, ow, there's something on my leg, don't always grab it. Because I grabbed the jumping choya off her leg, now my hand was stuck to her leg, okay? And immediately I'm looking at this thing, I said, wow, maybe this is telling us that we need to be closer or spend more time together or communicate better. And she's like, no, it's just a jumping choya. Our brains, what? Okay, it is a poisoned latent cactus. They call it jumping because they go in the wind. It's like a baseball. They're like, oh, look how cute that is. And I'll tell the story another time how I try to get it off my hand like this. And then we were out for a run and I tied my key to my shorts. You know how boys do that? And I put it down my pants. So I had to like, whole nother conversation, a whole nother day. But I created meaning out of it. So the whole thing with Tony, for an example, and I'll explain this in a minute, is what that means is, so what Tony created for himself is, I set a goal for myself, just like you. You thought things would be different this time with this guy. So you lied to yourself. And then you start questioning, how often do I lie to myself? I got 2 minutes and I gotta get to the point. So what happened with Tony is, Tony goes like this. I'm just gonna backtrack and he had an event occur. I'm gonna make this ultimate amount of money. He lies to himself, tells himself that this is gonna occur. Then what happens, he labeled it, said to be the best day of my life. He added meaning to it, said things are gonna work out great. But what then really happened is, Tony basically said, but the meaning, what does it really mean, is that what else in my life is not working out the way I want it to, or what else am I lying to myself about? So my question for you is a little different, because I want to switch this back and I want to help you out a second, is basically, who told you that making more money would make you happier? You did.
Me.
You came up with that. So basically you were wrong.
Yes.
And you don't like being wrong, because accountants don't like being wrong. So really, you're not bothered that making more money you're unhappy, you're really bothered that you're wrong. Let's step ahead another thing. And what happens when you actually become wrong? We're just playing with this, and none of this is true. You feel something. You're wrong, you feel insecure. So then Tony's like, wait a second, is my whole life bullshit? I told myself if I finally get to this place in my life, I would be happy. How many of you are resonating with Tony's story for your own life? If you are, say I am. Anybody catching this? So what happened with Tony, and I'll be done in like a minute, okay? Or 3. So what happens is, give me a second, it'll be worth it.
I just told her not to be because I know you're being Michael.
I'm being Michael, and if not, I'm gonna be a narcissist for a second, fuck off. No, I'm just kidding. But, so what happens is Tony feels something, and he says to himself, wow, this is uncomfortable, I don't like this. And then what happens is he reacts, and he goes, I don't know what to do, I go in my shell, this is what I typically do. And after we react for a while, what happens is you get a result. You get an unhappy person. I've watched that most of us look to change people's lives. We like to get them to pretend that the event didn't occur. And no, that didn't happen. It's one of the worst things you can say to somebody. And then we try to change the reaction of what they're doing. Like, stop doing that. I'm gonna tell you all of the all therapy. I have a library you couldn't even imagine on everything from psychotherapy to hypnosis, and you would name it. Everything that works out good, from Virginia Satir, one of my heroes, and all this great work basically comes down to a very simple thing: is you can't change the event, and you really can't change the reaction of what's happening, but if you could change the label, the meaning, and the emotion behind what happens, you have the ability to change almost anything in your life. See, when we were going over this list of what pisses you off, I use gradient language all the time. It's a term that I use. I don't really have things that piss me off. I have things that bother me. I have things that annoy me. I have things that frustrate the shit out of me, and I avoid the majority of those things. But why I'm bringing this up to all of you to really think about right now is, most of you are looking to change your results this year and demand from yourself that you do things differently, or you're looking to pretend those things didn't occur. If you could change the label slightly on what occurred, even the label on being here, ingenious, even shifting the label that I'm here to understand myself better, instead of like I have to get it. How many of you recognize you are torturing yourself in Genius Network with the attitude of, I came here because I spent $25,000 and I have to get it? If you're here I'm here to improve myself and find a few things that can make my life better, the emotion in your body starts looking for things differently. Your biochemistry changes, your emotions change in a major way. So why I'm bringing this up is, if I were to recalibrate Tony here real quickly in less than 30 seconds, I would say, Tony, basically what happened is you told yourself something was gonna happen that didn't happen the way you wanted it to, correct? And because of that, it made you a little bit upset. So it wasn't that you made more money that was your problem, is that you actually did something you didn't expect. You actually achieved something you've always wanted and you thought you'd have a different result, correct? So you were wrong temporarily. And being wrong temporarily is not wrong permanently. So all I'm going to challenge you to think about is, from that context, by changing that one word, it changes everything after associated with it. So I'm going to ask all of you to play with your brains for the next couple days, to think about this in any major way. I deal with this all the time. I had a woman that was held hostage for 5 days, and literally she was on a bus. And basically she said, 4 hostages, I'm in Israel, there's 4 hostages on a bus, and all of you hold yourself hostage from time to time. And she was on a bus in Israel, and there's 4 hostages, got her on the bus, kept her there for 4 or 5 days. I said, okay, so 4 hostages on the bus. I said, 4 got on, 5 got off. She goes, what the hell are you talking about? I said, what do you mean? She goes, you're not listening, Michael, you're being an asshole. I said, no, you don't get it. I'm confused. 4 hostages got on the bus and 5 got off. She goes, is your math bad? Are you stupid? What's wrong with you? I said, I think I'm hearing you clearly. 4 hostages got on the bus, kept you captive for 5 days, and 5 hostages got off. She goes, no, there was 4 hostages. I said, no. 4 got on the bus, you were there, and you decided to join them for the rest of your life. You're holding yourself hostage. You became a terrorist and you joined them. You've been terrorizing yourself for years. When she realized that she wasn't held hostage, that she was terrorizing herself, her emotions changed immediately. She got back to me. I'd worked with her 10 years ago, changed her life, changed her relationship. By one shift in one word, it's like marketing. One shift. Joe could change one word in your context of your copy, or Tucker, one word, or yesterday when he was talking about you and your, changes everything. So my question is, were you terrorized, or are you terrorizing yourself?
Okay, I hope you found that video awesome and useful. So if you want to get a free copy of my book, I want you to click here. And if you want to watch some more videos that'll be useful and awesome, click here. Go ahead. They're over here. Do it now. Come on. Thank you. Watch them.